Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Belgian Football Podcast. My name's Ben Jackson and as always I'll be your host. This week we're a man down again. Unfortunately Joris is ill. We wish him a speedy recovery. However, Scott is here and he's in good health. Scott, how you doing?
I'm good, Ben. It's great to be back. Hello, everyone, and get well soon, Joris. Hopefully you're back in your BFP saddle shortly.
Yeah, he's got the international break to recover. So he's got that extended period to rest up and hopefully he'll be back post the international break. Let's get into the action. I mean, we're going to probably rant about refereeing and VAR on behalf of Joris anyway, so he'll still be part of this, maybe from the distance. Starting off on Friday, we're definitely going to talk about VAR in this one. Union hosted Ostend, that finished 1 goal apiece. Saturday afternoon, Herman hosted Mechelen, that also finished 1 apiece. Salang then hosted Leuven, and that also finished 1 apiece. Charleroi hosted Cercle Bruges, this one didn't finish 1 apiece. This one finished 5-0 to Charleroi. Absolutely massive result for them and a big statement win. Antwerp got a belated win against Zultewaregem at home to end off Saturday. That was 1-0. Club Brugge beat Genk 3-1 on Sunday afternoon. Standard confirmed safety with a 1-0 win over Kortrijk. Ghent beat Anderlecht in the battle for the top playoff. That finished 1-0 to Ghent. And St. Truden pushed their way into the playoff 2 conversation with a 3-2 dramatic win over Beerschot. Let's start, obviously, with the Friday game, Union Saint-Gilloise against Ostend. And it was actually Ostend who took the lead early in this one on the 9th minute. Kind of failed to clear the lines from USG. Edge of the box. McGeehan kind of tries to win the ball. Bounces around a bit and just drops to Maxime Diarpino, who absolutely smashes it in. I think they registered at about 152 kilometers an hour or something. Absolutely ridiculous strike from him. No chance for Maurice in goal. If he'd got a finger to it, it might have fallen off. It was that ridiculous of a strike. So surprise kind of lead for Ostend in that one. And then it was kind of basically all USG pushing for the win. 68% possession, 18 shots. Only 7 of which were on target. Matoma had a goal disallowed for offside. There was then a highly controversial moment. I think it was the ball looked like it was going to go in after kind of deflected around a little bit. And Zach Medley looked like he'd cleared it off the line. However, no goal line technology. So we kind of had to take the words of the linesman who, to be fair, wasn't in line because of how the play had been going. It was unlikely that he would have been in the corner anyway. So you can kind of understand why he wasn't in line to see it. Referee as well, difficult to see because you don't have the technology. You're therefore at the kind of mercy of whatever the referees decide, and they decided it wasn't a goal. However, on the replays I've seen, it looks like it did cross the line, and I think in an age where you have VAR, you should be able to have the goal line technology as well. Like that just would have saved a lot of kind of controversy around this game. Again, USG kept pushing, missed so many good chances. However, that man Dennis Undav in the 83rd minute did get the equalising goal. However, controversy in this one, the lines weren't working. I think it was the 2D lines weren't working in VAR, so they couldn't really tell if he was offside or not, so just to go with the original decision again. So maybe you could argue that for Union, it kind of balanced itself out in the end with that one. However, it's just such a shame, isn't it, Scott, when a game of this magnitude, when you are a side like Union, when the technology is not working like that, which you've had in place throughout the season, it must just be so frustrating that these sort of things can cost you. Although you could, again, like I said, you can argue that it didn't actually cost them given kind of how both of these decisions went.
Yeah, it's a bit embarrassing actually. You know, the officiating in this game really. I mean, the ball's over the line for that goal for me. I mean, yeah, you've got to have a little bit of sympathy for the referee and the linesman because it's not always as clear cut as it is for us watching it. We have the benefit of angles that they don't, VAR or no VAR, but it's not particularly marginal for me. That's why that's a pretty kind of shocking decision. This game's interesting because there's a bit of a theme with Union this season. They've generally struggled a little bit more at home. And when I say struggle, I just mean they've obviously dropped, noticeably more points at home than they have away. And they also continue to not be quite as good as they normally are against sides in the lower half of the table, which has kind of been a bit of a theme with them kind of across the season. Really interested in hearing a little bit of Felix Mazu's post-match talk to the team on the pitch. Union's social media team are really good, and they tend to release a little bit of the footage on their social media every week. And there was a nice kind of 2 or 3 minute section they released this week where he was talking just after the full time whistle about how you cannot play effectively half a game like that. You can't play a rotten 45 minutes really and expect to really get anything out of a game. So I think he was frustrated that they didn't win in the end, just by the sheer volume of chances and obviously the goal that wasn't. And I think he's got a point. He interestingly still gave them 2 days off, he said at the end. He said for the quality of that second half performance, you can still have a couple of days off. So he's still looking after his squad at a point in the season where it's really getting to... some people would call it squeaky bum time. It's definitely getting to hold your nerve here, and nerves is very much in focus, because I think the pressure's starting to show a little bit. I think for me, they're handling it pretty well. It's leaking out in little signs, but you would expect that, as the gap has been narrowed slightly, and points that probably they shouldn't be dropping have been dropped. I thought Ostend were good, particularly in the first half. I thought they were doing everything right. They start games very well still. There's a lot of energy in the first kind of third of a game under Van der Heiga. I think there are signs that they just need to maintain that in a game, and that's difficult if you're playing any form of kind of high intensity pressing, and they've not quite managed to get the balance right yet. But that second half performance probably did deserve a win for Union. Didn't happen, you just got to deal with it and move on. But we've seen little signs of a theme that have been clear all season for them with some sides.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think as well, what might actually help is Dante being out, in a sense that when he comes back, they'll get that renewed energy and boost from him being back. And I think that could kind of potentially be the catalyst that does push them over the line in the end. But I know that when I've had conversations with people asking me if Union are going to do it, I've always said Club Brugge will go on a run and come back, and we've seen that is definitely the case. Like they've always had that in them. So yeah, the pressure has started to mount a bit. I mean, the gap's closed down to 5 points, so we've got a title race, people. There's no doubt about that. And when playoff one does come around, it will definitely be squeaky bum time all round, to be honest. On Ostend, pretty much safe. I mean, not technically safe, because Selang could still catch them, but they play Selang next, so if they win that, obviously safe. Draw that, they're safe. If they get actually battered by Selang, then they're definitely not safe, because their goal difference is, I think, 7 goals better than Selang's at the moment. So I think that they're going to be fine, because there's still some gap in between there. And they did put in a good performance against Union this weekend. So yeah, credit where credit is due. Let's move on then to another side in the relegation dogfight in Erpen, and they played against Mechelen, and they could have taken the lead. They could have extended their lead, taken the lead quite a lot in the first couple of minutes in this one. Obviously all from set pieces, because we know that Mechelen don't like to defend set pieces, and it was through a set piece that Erpen did take the lead. Boris Lambert given the freedom of the Kerweg to head home. Absolutely no one anywhere near him in the 8th minute. And then a couple of minutes later, I think it was Harris with a header that kind of like bobbled around a bit. Prevoyak and Beck kind of got in each other's way. If Prevoyak had left it, Beck was ready to just slam it in. However, that didn't happen. And then in typical kind of Mechelen fashion, they got straight back into the game. Really, really nice ball across for Rob Scoofs to smash one past the goalkeeper and Nuruddin. Really, really nice finish. It's one of those goals that it won't make like the goals of the season kind of thing, but the technique on the shot from Scoofs, and we've seen him score some fantastic goals. And I personally think this is right up there with some of them, because he's rushing onto the ball from deep, and he just has to lots of players would have either smashed that over or completely missed it. But we know how good he is technically to put that one in. It looked like it was going to get even worse for Erpen. Corner came in, Jordi Amat was wrestling in the box. Referee gave a penalty. Amat obviously gets carded for that. He then pushes, I think it was either Rabti or it was Van der Berg on the edge of the box. He just pushes him over right in front of the referee. Not sure what was going on there. It was all a bit bizarre. He gets an immediate second yellow card, so he's basically sent off in the space of a couple of minutes. However, luckily for him, Rabti was unable to convert the penalty. He hit the post, and that's how it finished. It finished 1 apiece there. I guess for Erpen, it was a good point in the end because they only had 29% possession, played the whole of the second half with only 10 men. For Mechelen, it will be frustrating that they weren't able to get the win, but it's kind of, we know that now they're completely stuck into playoff 2 thanks to, I think Scott, it's 4 draws in a row now. So, I mean, quite frustrating that they were on such a good run and now they're kind of stuttering into playoff 2.
Yeah, I think that was probably the last chance Mechelen had, maybe of pushing out for an outside playoff 1 spot. Really, I know they'd said a couple of weeks ago they felt that probably it had gone, but I think in truth, a win here against Eupen would have kept them just in with a shout. But I think dropping points has seen that go completely now. Mechelen played generally kind of quite well. I think they played well enough to win it. It's just one of those where it didn't get over the line. Eupen obviously still mathematically need another point just to make sure nothing untoward happens, which I think they'll probably get. I think they're safe. I don't think anyone's going to catch them, but they do need another point to make it mathematically safe. Good to see Prevoljak back. I think he has been missed. They're not quite the same without him, and I think Eupen play with that kind of confidence when he's on the side. As you would expect any team to do who have a marksman who is as capable as he is. So they're an entirely different side when he's on the pitch, really. This was quite an entertaining game, actually. Lots of chances in it. A really good example of the old adage that it's not how much you have of the ball, it's about what you do with it. I mean, Mechelen having as much as 71% possession in this game, which is massive. Not doing enough of the kind of crucial things with it, and Eupen managing to get a point with less than a third of the possession tells you that what they did do was reasonably effective, actually, without even looking particularly deep in the game. I think a draw based on what both sides did actually do is probably fair. Mechelen probably safe for playoff 2 now, but I think they'll be looking to try and get at least one more win from their remaining 2 games in the regular season just to secure that, because there could be a little bit of unexpected movement right up until the end with playoff 2, as there could, of course, with playoff 1 now because of results this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing we're certain about is Beerschot at the moment, which is a great thing to have going into kind of the last 2 games of the season. No one likes it when you go into the last couple of games and everything's already decided and everyone's kind of, some teams have nothing to play for, which is the case for Leuven at the moment. They drew 1 apiece with Salang. They had lots of chances in this game. So did Salang, actually. It was quite an end-to-end one. However, it was Leuven who took the lead. And, I mean, you think of Leuven, you think of kind of the players they've got, and you wouldn't have the man making the assist being Louis Patrice, the right-sided centre-back, making a darting run down the right-hand side, getting all the way to the byline and squaring it for Alexis Dessart to score the winner. But that is what happened, to score the opening goal. Sorry, not the winner. But that is what happened. And Patrice looked surprised. His whole team looked absolutely dumbfounded that he had just done that. I don't think Salang expected him to be able to do that, but he did it, and fair play to him. It was an incredible run from him. And after that, they had quite a few more chances. Deesh making some really, really good saves to keep out quite a few of the attacking players. He made a good save from Mercier, Schlevers as well. On Salang's side, it was Maziz who seemed to be creating everything and trying to get the goal back. He was involved in every kind of attack that they had that was good. A couple, I think, just before the equaliser, he crossed it for Marius Murandu-Maji. He unfortunately couldn't convert his header. Just needs to head it a bit further down, but he kind of blazed it over the bar. And you thought that was probably going to be it for Sarang at that point. However, Maziz did then grab the equalising goal. Edge of the box strike from him. Riddleson didn't really move or have a chance with that. Big point for Sarang because it keeps them like they're still in it. They're still kind of in with a shout of staying up. Leuven, on the other hand, I mean, technically, yes, they could make playoff 2, but I don't think that's going to happen now. That's at least 5 games without a win, a draw and 2 defeats in the last 3. So they've kind of slid a little bit. And you can tell that maybe they've realised that the season's pretty much over for them. For Sarang, Scott, that's 4 points that they've grabbed now over the last 2 games. They're still just about clinging on, aren't they?
Yeah, like you say, there's just an inkling of a chance that they might be able to leap into 16th and escape that kind of playoff spot. Zolta, another point for Zolta in their last 2 regular games would be enough for them, whereas Sarang obviously need to win both the remaining games and hope that Zolta don't, that they lose them. So it is still possible, particularly with the way Zolta's season has actually gone. We thought a couple of weeks ago when they beat Sarang that was then probably safe now, and I think they thought that, but actually this ain't over yet. And I think that's the message that Timmy Simons will want his players to kind of be focused on, that they need at least one more point over their last 2 games. Sarang have actually, over the last month, I think they've been playing quite well. The big problems we know is they've just not been scoring. They've not been converting their chances. They create plenty of chances, and they've been playing well. They've just not been able to kill games, and they've had that thing where they win or they lose. They don't get a point, and that's the story for me this weekend. Sarang managed to actually get a point, which was amazing, actually. You know what I mean? Because it goes one way or the other, and that point, bizarrely, is the point that kind of keeps them kind of alive. So it's entirely possible. I think we could be going into the final weekend of the regular season, match day 34, in a couple of weeks or so, with that final game being the one that might decide who finally ends in that playoff spot. So it's all to play for still there, which is actually quite exciting, because I don't think either of us thought that was going to be the case a couple of weeks ago. We thought this was done.
Yeah, no, definitely. I thought they were done after the Zulte Waregem game. But yeah, just kind of quickly looking ahead. Slang play Oostend, like I said earlier, and then they finish the season at home to Genk. Genk potentially will have nothing to play for in that game. Zulte, on the other hand, they have St. Truden, who have everything to play for at the moment and are looking very, very good. And then they finish the season against Charleroi, who we'll talk about in a bit. But yeah, no, I think on Solang, we spoke during the transfer window special that we did. We didn't actually get to talk about these 2 players because they kind of joined just after around it. But Dabida and Dijkstram, they signed Dijkstram basically after I think it was Molawage wasn't like available or had to leave. 30-year-old defender who I think he was playing for he's been playing for a Swedish team before this. Was then released on a free, so he was available on a free. He's playing for a Norwegian team, Sarpsborg. Then moved to Solang. They picked him up on a free, and he's been a really good signing. I've been really impressed with him coming into the side to play in that kind of back 3. And you just kind of think, if only they'd had potentially him at the beginning of the season alongside some of these others, maybe defensively they could have been a little bit better when they had that kind of rut and had to bring in some more defenders. But yeah, they're putting a fight in, and I think that's all you can really ask. As if you are a fan of Solang, you can't argue that the side's given up at all or done anything like that. They are really pushing. So fingers crossed that we do have something going to the last day of the season, because I love it when that happens. And obviously we had that last year with Vasan Beveren and Mouscron. That obviously was just for the playoff place, but it was exciting and made it a really, really good kind of final day. I mentioned Charleroi in that kind of little roundup there. And yeah, their game against Cercle Bruges was a goal fest for them. Unfortunately for Cercle, I think they may have just kind of gone as far as they can go in terms of pushing for playoff 2, but still a remarkable turnaround considering where they were. Charleroi just kind of dominated this game. Joris Kembe opened the scoring in the 6th minute. He was kind of fed wide on the left-hand side, drove into the box, cut inside, took a nice deflection from, I think it was from Jesper Darland, away from Varlason, just absolutely no chance for him. And that found the back of the net. 3 minutes later, Vacuum Bio, we've been talking, haven't we, Scott, about how much more confident he looks, and he scored an absolute peach in the 9th minute. Edge of the box, cuts inside, curls it into the top corner, and the smile on his face and that look on his face just looked like a bloke who's thinking he's going to score most of his chances. We'll talk about his second goal in a bit. That was just as cool and calm with the finish. However, Edgars Utkus did the most bizarre kind of thing in the box down the other end to get himself sent off, just tussling with Ilham Richa, and he just elbowed him in the face, and it was just so unnecessary. And usually you find, I think, when players kind of get something to their face, like the opposition, whoever get the victim, I guess we could say, they usually go down quite quickly. But Ilham Richa kind of went down quite slowly, because I think even he was like, "Why? What are we doing? Why have you done that?" Because it was just such a weird, kind of rush to the head moment that we haven't really seen from him this season. So he'll definitely learn from that, I'm sure. But he gets himself sent off. I don't think there's many arguments that can be had with that. I mean, we spoke about VAR earlier, but VAR in this age, it's going to pick that up. I mean, it was so obvious. For Circle, that kind of ended their kind of chances of getting back into the game now. And yeah, Charleroi kind of put the hammer down. 35th minute, really, really nicely worked goal. There was a little bit of a deflection at the end, which kind of ruined the cleanness of it. But started on the right-hand side. Zahawi cuts inside. I think he plays like a 1-2 with Badji. The ball gets across to Bayo, and he kind of shapes to curl it. He shapes to shoot to the left. He does the eyes with Varlas and sends him left and just tucks it into the bottom corner. Really confident finish. He then turned provider a couple of minutes later for Dan Hermans, who, again, he's been a really good signing pick up in January. I think with Morioka kind of being injured and suspended, they've needed someone from the midfield to do a little bit of a different role. And Hermans has come in and been able to do that. He's really complemented Ilham Richa and Zorgan. So he makes it 4-0 at half time. Zari then comes on and he bags a goal in the 54th minute to make it 5-0. I mean, the efficiency, we talk about efficiency, Scott, but 12 shots overall for Charleroi, 11 on target. You're going to score goals if that's your efficiency rating, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, this is, again, red cards changing games. Here's a really good example of that. This game just, did change after that. I mean, obviously, Charleroi were well in control at that point. They were 2-0 up by the time that happened. But it didn't upset their rhythm at all. They wanted more, even though they were well in control of the game. And when you're 2-0 down and then you lose a man, then you've got to sense this has got away from us already. Interestingly, Circle being so good at winning the ball back in the opposition's final third weren't quite as good at that this week. They dipped below their normal standard. And the things that they've been doing so well since Dominic Thalhammer came in, they just didn't do quite as well this week. With or without the red. Obviously, the red that kind of doesn't help because everybody has to work a little bit harder after something like that. Yeah, just not as good offensively, and also in the aggressive tackles as well. In a dueling sense, not quite as good as they've been recently. So their general performance levels weren't quite as good as they have been, and then obviously circumstances in the game just naturally went against them, which doesn't help. So sore one for them to take this because I think, although they knew this was going to be a hard game for them. I think there was an awareness that a win at Stade de Pays would really have kept them in the hunt for a playoff 2 spot. And I think that although there's still an outside chance, depending on other results going their way over the next couple of weeks or so, I think probably with this unfortunate hammering, which is really, I think they'll put it down to a blip really and just circumstances. I do think they will. They'll go away and analyse it properly, but I think that's what it is, because they've been playing kind of consistently well for a while now. It's just unfortunate that blip is probably the one that's punctured their final playoff 2 hopes.
Yeah, no, and I mean, if they had won this game, they'd have leapfrogged Genk and St. Luden into that playoff 2 spot. So that'd be really frustrating because kind of results did go their way, and they would even be in with the shout of catching Mechelen with their goal difference just slightly would have been a lot better than it was. Now down to 3, so still in the positive, and they're kind of like an outlier within the bottom half because they are the only team with a positive goal difference, which shows how well they had been defending up until that point. So that'd be frustrating for them. Speaking of teams defending, we obviously know that Zultewagen are one of the worst defences in the league. However, they went to Antwerp and only lost 1-0, and it took Antwerp 83 minutes to break the deadlock in this one. They had the chances, they were pushing, and Zulte defended well. They just kind of backs against the wall, tried to hit Antwerp on the break, had their chances on the break as well. They were able to create a few kind of opportunities to try and break the deadlock, try and snatch the win. Unfortunately, it wasn't to be for them, and Buona Samata with a really, really nice kind of run and finish into the box, kind of what we expect from him coming off the bench. And you could just sense the relief in the stadium when that goal went in. I mean, the fans obviously went absolutely nuts. The bench was kind of just, I think there's breathed a sigh of relief. And I guess Brian Frisk kind of stays the execution for another week. In that sense, I felt, Scott, if they hadn't won that game, it probably would have been curtains there and then. Obviously, we are going to speak about Antwerp a little bit more in detail later on for reasons that many of you will know about. If you don't, then yeah, we'll let you know later on. But keeps them well into playoff one. And it was probably quite important that that did happen because of the other results that took place. They would have dropped out because of the Ghent win against Anderlecht. So important win, but again, it's not as convincing as what we'd have expected them to do against a side like Zultewagen.
Yeah, it's kind of been the story of Antwerp's season, isn't it? It's like, getting over the line, getting the result without being massively impressive or even massively entertaining. Although from what I saw of this game, I thought they played quite well this weekend, and ironically weren't really rewarded for some of their nice play, actually. So I think they were well deserving of the win, even if the numbers kind of, didn't really kind of give them what they deserved, which was probably more goals and more out of this game, but kind of well on top. Zalta, of course, obviously knew they were going to go there and probably be up against it, and not very much of the ball, and tried, that Zalta trick, which has been coming off for them in recent weeks, and trying to hit teams in the break. And you need to be careful when playing Zalta because it's something they've been kind of trying to do as kind of part of their in-house style for a while, and has been coming off for them a lot recently and getting them some points. Really important win, as you were saying, because of results elsewhere in playoff one. And I think the final four of playoff one is going to go down to the final weekend. I think it's getting very, very tight now, and somebody is probably going to miss out, and it might be somebody we don't expect. And Antwerp are in a sort of precarious position. I think there's not any doubt about Union and Club Brugge making it, but those third and fourth positions actually are. Still very much up for grabs, and somebody's going to miss out, I think. It's just anybody's guess as to who that's going to be.
Yeah, no, I think for Antwerp, kind of looking at what they've got coming up, like they should make it in. They're playing Leuven, who have nothing to play for, and then they finish off against Cercle Bruges, who probably will have nothing to play for by then as well. So they kind of should go into those games and get the points that they need, but it's easier said than done. For Zulte, on the other hand, I mean, it's just not ideal to lose with Salang then picking up those points. They still have a 5-point gap, so they just need probably a point because despite how bad their defence has been, because of the goals that they can score, like 42 overall this season, their goal difference is 14 better than Salang. So unless they get absolutely pumped in these next 2 weeks, they should just about be able to stay up. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. But I guess defensively a little bit more kind of convincing in the sense that they only conceded one against an Antwerp side with all that firepower, not for the want of trying on their part at all. Let's go into that playoff one. Then you spoke about Club Brugge there, Scott, about how they are definitely going to be in playoff one. And yeah, they're on really, really good form at the moment. I think just piling on the points and the wins. Took the lead early in this one, quite fortuitously. Hans van Aken, I'm sure he'll admit that this one was quite a lucky one. Matzovic with the initial shot kind of bobbles around and like flicks off of Van Aken and loops in over Van der Voort. That happened in like the 4th minute, so really early lead taken there for Club Brugge at home. No Paul Onuachu for Genk. So it was kind of Pansel and Ito given the job of doing the upfront duties, and it was Ito who got them back into this game. Really nice run from across from the right-hand side all the way to the left, and then angles a shot the other way past Mignolet. Not really much he could do about that one. Into the second half in this one, and some really terrible defending from Genk. I don't know how you allowed Charles de Ketelaere to be free in the box. We know how good he is in the air, especially this season. He has been really, really good at getting those headed goals. I think it was Mujahid Sadiq just was nowhere near him as the ball came in, and he was going to make no mistake from the edge of the 6-yard box, finding the bottom corner. Poor Sadiq's game got even worse. I mean, there's probably two kind of differing opinions on this one, I guess, like whether it was or wasn't a red card, given that was he definitely the last man? I think it was Matt Reitz running through again. And he just kind of takes him down. And I think how cynical a foul it was. He was never going to get the ball, very close to being last man. Ritz was probably going to shoot with his next touch, because obviously that's probably the type of player he is. I can see why the referee gave it as a red card. Others would argue he wasn't last man, so I guess, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. The referee made his decision, and that was that. Genk still had chances to get back into it. Pansel had a glorious chance just to square it to Heinen, Thorsford, I can't remember who it was. Mohammed as well was in there. He just had to pass it, but instead he went for a shot, which Mata saved, which Mata blocked. And that was probably Genk's best chance to get back into it, because then Adamiyan scored again. He had a couple of bites at the cherry and then dribbled one into the bottom corner. And that was how it finished. 3-1 to Club Brugge, another 3 points for Club Brugge. And Genk's kind of playoff 2 chances are hanging by a thread at the moment, whereas Club Brugge are really motivating to put pressure on Union.
Yeah, well, I was just talking a minute ago about how red cards often change the narrative of a game, and here's another example of that. This game was really quite even until the red card, and Genk were very much in it. It absolutely could have gone either way, and then all changes after that. The red card's interesting because I think it was a red. I mean, there is a definite argument that there is defensive cover potentially there, but I think the referee's made the right call here, because I think you have to give the benefit of the doubt to the attacking player ultimately in a decision like that, unless it's very, very clear that the defensive cover had a good chance of getting across. And it's one of those where you look at it from a few angles, and actually I would argue it's 50-50 at best as to whether the defensive cover was going to be able to get back to be able to make a tackle anyway. So I think the red's a right call. That changes the game. And allows Club Brugge ultimately just to wear them down. Saga Sadamiyan, somebody who's taken a little bit of criticism from us here at the BFP, is actually having not a bad season at all. And it's amazing what happens, isn't it, when a coach who knows you professionally and personally and puts their arm around you and says, look, you're my man, I trust you, just go and do your thing. And he's started to settle and started to produce the goods for Alfred Schroeder, and they'll be feeling really good about themselves, club, at the moment, because the gap's reduced at the top. They know, as everyone else knows, it was always going to come down to those 6 games in playoff 2, and they'll be feeling probably all right about this going into it. Because a few weeks ago it was looking like it was going to be a tough ask for them, but actually I think this is going to be a real fight, particularly when the top 2 have still to play each other as well.
Yeah, no, exactly. Looking forward to that one as well. For Genk on the other hand, just they're now literally sharing point for point with St. Truden. Obviously, makes that defeat to St. Truden even more kind of costly now that they are level on points. But as Joris said, he's not too fussed if they make it or not, so he doesn't have to watch them anymore. So hopefully, while he's ill, they can just get out of playoff two, so he can maybe recover more. Maybe this had an impact on him. I don't know. Let's move on to the next game that took place, which was Kortrijk against Standard. How Kortrijk didn't win this or score a goal in this one is again all down to the efficiency. 12 shots overall, only one on target, and they had so many chances. Poor Josiah Herman started up front, and he had quite a few. Moreno had a couple, and Bio created a few for them. Cadley created a few, but they just couldn't find the back of the net. Henkenet probably spent more time getting the ball for a goal kick than he did actually having to make any saves. However, it was Standard who won this one. Selim Amala, we always know he's got a little bit of brilliance in him, and this was a little bit of brilliance. Gets onto the ball and just dinks it over Ilic from a ridiculous angle. Another one to kind of add to his collection of really, really good goals. And I mean, it couldn't have come at a better time for Standard, and Luca Elsner gets a win over his former club, obviously in Kortrijk. Means they're safe for next season. Like, I don't think there was that much trouble of them going down over these last couple of weeks because of how other teams had fallen away and the gap between them and Salang. Obviously, defeat to Salang didn't help, but I always felt that they would have enough because of the gap there to stay up. But at least this confirms it. They can kind of start putting things in place and plan stuff for next season. Kortrijk, on the other hand, I think just you can kind of, you look at their form, you see 4 defeats in a row, and you'd think that they're on their holidays already, but they aren't. They have actually been playing and trying, and they did push and try in this game, but they just couldn't find the back of the net. And now, they've basically got nothing to play for these last 2 games. They can just kind of relax and enjoy their football, I guess.
Yeah, I think in truth, Standard were great in the first half, particularly. Really, really underwhelming, much like they've been for the majority of the season. I think words were obviously exchanged at halftime because they were better in the second half. And they got more than the point that they needed ultimately and were looking for. They got the win. You're talking about kind of Kortrijk's lack of efficiency. I think missing Fayez Selimani probably had something to do with that. They are certainly blunter, I think is the word, when he's not on the pitch, because he can produce a goal out of nothing or an assist out of nothing for them as well. So they definitely miss him when he's not around. So though offensively Kortrijk were really going for it, I think that lack of efficiency is explained. Like you say, 12 shots in the game, only one of them on target is just not good enough to really get anything out of the game. Having said that, Standard only had 3 shots on target, and managed to kind of escape with the win. So they did just enough at key moments. Standard, they'll be looking to go away now and just kind of wipe the slate clean, because they've got they've got some summer ahead of them there at Slesson, don't they?
Yeah, it's going to be busy. Definitely going to be busy there. For Kortrijk, I think striking department probably needs to look at in the summer. Obviously, Pap Gay being out for as long as he's been isn't ideal. But you've seen that since he's gone down, the over-reliance on kind of those wingers in Selemani and Mbaya, like Badamosi's looked good, but he hasn't quite found the goals. Herman obviously started this game, didn't quite look up to scratch yet. Missed quite a few chances, had a really good headed chance that he didn't quite find the back of the net. Messaldi as well, he's coming a bit, not really goal scoring material. So I think they'd probably like to add a goal scorer in the summer, especially if you think Selemani is probably going to go anyway because of the season he's had. So they need to somehow replace goals. They've got the wingers, they've got Bayer Moreno who can do the creative stuff, but they definitely need another goal scorer in that side, preferably up front.
I think Selimani has said as much, hasn't he? That he's going to be looking to move in the summer, so that's pretty much certain now. I think Kortrijk are interesting because they've done some of their summer business early. We know that Yusuf Chaluk's going to be coming in, who's a very exciting player. We've been banging on about him for at least a year and a bit, saying please somebody pick him up, because he was begging to kind of make the step up to 1A, and he's a really interesting player. We're really interested to see how he adapts to to 1A. They've also obviously got a pre-contract on Westerlo's goalkeeper as well. So they're kind of tooling up early, which is an encouraging sign, I think. In terms of how they've handled their recruitment, and of course they're very close to agreeing a deal for Deneuve Zolta, which is a bit of a touchy one with them being
Oof.
local rivals
Yeah.
as well. The Zolta fans are not too happy about potentially losing one of their bright talents to effectively their local rivals, who they're not too friendly with, as we've seen already this season. Um, so they're handling things in the right way, and they're looking forward rather than behind them. And I think the signs of who will be coming in over the summer means that I think they've got a bright season ahead of them next year. I think on paper anyway. I'm quite encouraged by the signs that are kind of coming out of that club. Even if the second half of this season has been a little bit more inconsistent and largely disappointing for them. It's interesting, isn't it? They've obviously got picked up points at key moments because despite being on not the greatest run over the last couple of months, they've hung in an okay position in the league. And some other results around them have very much kind of gone in their favour. So, although it's been a disappointing second half of the season for them, they haven't suffered too much from that, and that's one of the interesting, slightly quirky things about the Belgian Pro League, that you can have a season like that and still be all right. And Kortrijk have luckily done that this year.
Yeah, no, definitely can't argue with any of that. And I guess one of the beauties of not having this, not being in one of the playoff spots, frustrating as it can be, is you can start doing your business early because you know exactly when the season's over in 2 match days time. You're like, right, we can start planning and get ahead with that. And they did it last year, and they're doing it again this year. So kudos to them. Um, Two sides that probably can't really start planning, and also have a cup final date with each other coming up are Ghent and Anderlecht. Um, Quite an even game. This one, it's fair to say, both sides had chances, both sides pushing. Really good atmosphere in the stadium. Felt like a big game, felt like an important game, and that's kind of all you can ask for. For Anderlecht, they had 19 shots, only 7 on target. Ghent, on the other hand, 5 shots, 2 on target, but they got the one on target that mattered. Um, Lots of pushing from both sides in the first half, no goals. Second half, again, lots of pushing. Anderlecht had chances. Reef made a couple of saves. Ghent then got the decisive goal. Lovely little counter attack from them after winning the ball back. Finds Sven Kums on the left hand side, and the audacity to do what he did in terms of just play a pass with the outside of his right foot round the defence into an on-rushing Tarek Tisadali, who had started the move off by playing it out to Kums, makes the secondary run straight into the heart of the Anderlecht defence and puts it past Van Klombrugge, and he looked knackered after that run. But again, it just highlights the importance of this man to them, because he has just been absolutely huge for them whenever they've needed it. Obviously, this is coming off the back of that disappointment in Europa League as well, where they've been knocked out. So that's now no more midweek games, no more European football for them. It's whole focus on the league. And yeah, their ridiculous form continues, doesn't it, Scott? And it is that man, Tarek Tisadali, leading the charge once again.
Yeah, well, I think this was interesting. This was billed as a big game of the weekend for a number of reasons, because it had massive implications for playoff one, and again, in truth, I think just getting a little bit lucky. That's my kind of feeling about the game. I thought Anderlecht with a slightly better side over the course of it. Um, deserved a point at least, but just didn't get it. Again, were lucky. They managed to get their noses in front. Lovely goal, and managed to see the game out. Hugely important. Obviously, allows them to kind of squeak into playoff one now, which is really, really interesting. Seventh straight win for the Buffaloes in the league. And in that time, over those 7 games, they've scored 13 goals and only conceded 2, which is really, really good. They're looking really good at the back. You mentioned how important Tisadali is. He's actually been responsible for 5 of those 13 goals over those 7 games. De Poitre for 3 of them. So, as I said to somebody the other day in conversation, no Tisadali, no party, and absolutely, he is the sole reason that the form has been so good over the last couple of months. Certainly, um, isn't it interesting that you go on a good run at a key moment in the season, and it can kind of all come together for you. Obviously, they had a European disappointment this week. Michel Louege, general manager, coming out saying that Europe obviously was of the three fronts that they were fighting on. That was the one that was probably the least important. I'm not sure everyone agreed with that, but you have to kind of privately prioritise. But yeah, incredible run that they're on, and this can only add to their confidence, knowing that ultimately they want a playoff one spot, and they've got the cup final against the same opponents coming up. And I think this actually heaps a lot of pressure on Anderlecht now, although it's not done yet. A couple of games left yet, so there's probably still some drama in this. But knowing that they're going into a cup final, that if they win, they're guaranteed some European football. Anderlecht, this is, well, for both winners, they'd be guaranteed it. But for Anderlecht and Vincent Company, winning that cup final is a sign of progress, and it's European football. So to slip out of playoff one with a couple of games to go, probably when you deserved a little bit more out of this game, will be a wee bit hard for them to take. But these things happen, and Hein van Heisenbroek afterwards was saying that he felt that winning the game was a bit generous, and they did get a slice of luck. He didn't feel ultimately that, although it was an even game, that they deserved to get the win. So it was nice to see a manager come out and be so generous and honest about that. But yeah, things coming together for the Buffaloes at the right time, and they are looking at a situation where not only could they finish in playoff one, but they could be bringing a trophy home as well. But of course, Anderlecht will be thinking and saying exactly the same thing.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating that this kind of the way the league's panned out and the cups panned out. You kind of brought these two teams together in a rivalry for two different domestic kind of ambitions and goals that are so aligned with each other, and like it could go all one way, or they could split the two competitions between each other. One makes playoff one isn't a playoff two, but wins the cup. Like there's so many different dynamics at play within this, and yeah, I mean, I guess in Van Heisenberg, it's always nicer to be like, yeah, we didn't deserve to win when you have got the win, because you can be like, oh well, what a shame. But yeah, looking at Anderlecht play Charleroi next after the international break. We know Charleroi not very good against teams that are above them in the league. Then they play Kortrijk, who at the end of the last game of the season will have absolutely nothing to play for. Could be dangerous though, because they still play and they still try, and you just don't know what's going to happen there. But I think that race is definitely going down to the wire, that's for sure. We'll talk a little bit more about the European kind of fallout a little bit later on. Let's move quickly to the final game of the weekend, which was St. Truden against Beerschot. And this one had 5 goals in this one. Christian Bruls probably could have had 3. First one he did get was offside in the build-up. I think it was Hayashi who was offside for that one, but Bruls tucked it in anyway. Really nice finish, kind of foreshadowed what was to come. He then did get his goal. Really, really nice finish from him from the right-hand side. Curled it with his left foot into the far corner. Bishkot then got back into it. Musashi Suzuki got, I think it's his first goal of the season, or, well, he can't have got many this season, but he did a really, really nice finish after a through ball, running onto it, put it away. And you back of the head, you're thinking, Suzuki, St. Truden, like, maybe they'll look at him next season and be like, oh yeah, we could have another Suzuki. He fits the bill perfectly for what kind of players they'd like to get in. However, it was another Japanese player that gave St. Truden the lead, and it was Taichi Hara. Really, really nice finish from him into the bottom corner to make it 2-1 going into half-time. However, Beerschot did get back into it. Stipe Radic got a goal. Shows they haven't given up. They're still fighting. He gets a goal, kind of like a scramble at a corner, and he smashes it in to make it 2 goals apiece. Beerschot were very, very lucky that Yeloi, the goalkeeper, made a couple of really, really decent saves to keep it at 2 goals apiece. However, Abubakar Koita came back on came back, made his return after being ill and injured, kind of a bit of both. And he marked that with the goal in the 87th minute to give them the win. Really, really nice finish from him. Beat like a couple of players in kind of typical Koita fashion and smashed it into the bottom left-hand corner. And that win, Scott, keeps them well in with a chance of playoff two. Level on points with Genk. Unbeaten in the last five, at least 2 wins on the bounce. They're starting to pick up a little bit of form, starting to show what they can do. Obviously, coming up, they've got Zorteral again next, and then on a final game of the season, they host a Standard side who have nothing to play for. So they're well in with a shout. And I think if Union hadn't been doing so well and stuff like that, like we'd be talking probably a lot more about Bernd Hollerbach and the job he's done there.
Yeah, unbelievable. Actually, I was just going to go straight to Bern, so that's a fantastic seamless link there. Brilliant. Yeah, St Trude. I mean, what a story. I mean, over their last 7 games, that's 17 points out of their last 21. And they haven't had a run anything like that, I think, for about 6 or 7 years. I think I'd have to go and look, but it's at least 6 years since they've been in a run anything like that at any stage of the season. So that's how good they've been over the last sort of month or so. That's 5 wins and 2 draws. It's got them into, I mean, right on the cusp of playoff two now. And if they do it over the next couple of games, it looks like it's going to be at the expense of their favourite opponents and local Limburg rivals, Genk as well. And the way that they're playing, actually, you wouldn't bet against them. The last couple of games are, I think, winnable for them as well. So, it's going to be really interesting to see if they can squeak in there, because I said at the start of the season in our big pre-season preview, I had worries for them. I had worries about where the goals were going to come from, even to keep them safe in the league at all. And they've had a bit of a slow burning season where they've been kind of progressively improving. They had a sort of a really quite dull, quiet period where it looked like there wasn't much happening either way. In the kind of second half of the first part of the season, but their second half of the season has really been very strong. They've found a formula that's worked. I think the players that come in January have ultimately given them a lift. They haven't had a massive impact directly in terms of points, those players, but I think they have had an impact in terms of the performances across the squad, which has given them a lift, which has helped in a big way here. And whatever Hollerbach's doing, it's working. I think there's a big summer ahead for them still. They have to renew some things, I think. Because there are going to be some players, I think, leaving there, which will have to be replaced. But their second half of the season has been pretty sensational, and what a story it would be if they could squeak into playoff two, because nobody anywhere, not even St Trude fans, I think, thought there was even an outside chance of that until, a couple of weeks ago, really.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that win against Genk, didn't it, kind of gave them the, oh, hang on, yeah, we can do this. You mentioned those signings, and yeah, I think I've spoken at length when they signed Tony Lyson. I thought he was a really good signing. He's proven to be a really good signing. I wasn't sure about Robert Bauer, but he's been fantastic since he came in. Bruce obviously was brought in last season. He's been great. Hayashi and Hara are starting to settle in the league. They're starting to get a good kind of connection between the two of them, and I'm looking forward to seeing that kind of potentially be a bit more effective next season. Still could do one more striker, I think, next year, because obviously Klaus, like you said, he's one of those players that is going to be leaving. I like that he hasn't, because you'd think when you look at the striking options, you'd presume that Klaus would have been the starting striker, but I like that Hollerbach's been kind of like, well, he's just on loan and now he's leaving. I'm going to play Hayashi and Hara because I want to develop this partnership and I want this partnership to work. And he's getting the kind of fruits of that, because it's a classic big man, small man partnership, which is great to see. I love those sort of things, and to see those two guys. You can tell there's like a good friendship between the two of them. I think it's been that from the outside anyway. Like, I don't know if this is true or not, but it looks like that's probably been quite important to helping them kind of settle into life in Belgium and stuff like that. And they are definitely starting to do that. And it's been great to see that happening alongside with someone like Christian Bruls as well, the creativity and stuff. I think he's had a really, really, really good season. And he's been massively important to everything they've done going forward. I think without him, they probably wouldn't have scored and won as many games as they did. Also, just a quick little stat: that's the first time they've conceded 2 goals since the 15th of January, I believe. The first game back when they lost 2-1 to 2-0, sorry, to Club Brugge. So that shows how strong they've been defensively. And if you keep teams out and you're only conceding one a game, you've got a great chance of picking up points, which they've definitely been able to do. Let's move on to, I guess, we've got, we usually do a little news section. There's only one thing to really talk about. This came completely out of the blue to me. I did not see this coming at all. I don't think anyone in football saw this coming. I thought many people believe that when Marc Overmars was sacked for inappropriate behaviour at Ajax towards female employees with texting and messages he was sending to them, many probably thought that he's going to be out for a while from football. Like, no one's probably going to touch him for a bit. He needs to go away and think about what he's done and kind of reflect on it, learn from it, and kind of seek forgiveness, I guess you could say, and do all that stuff. But no, he's back very, very quickly. He's been given the job at Antwerp, who said that they don't have any problems with, well, not they don't have any problems with what he did. That's completely not what they said. They said it's a private matter that they believe isn't to do with like him working at the club, which is quite bizarre. Also, they haven't consulted any of the female members of staff apparently, which again is bizarre. I don't know why this whole situation. I'm going to rant for a bit, and then Scott, I'm sure you're going to rant for a bit. My kind of whole take on this is like, these things are inappropriate and everything like that. I don't think anyone in the walk of life with something like this should be banned from coming back. I think there's always room for forgiveness. There's always room for someone to learn from their mistakes and do that. But that takes time, and you need to prove that you have learned from your mistakes. You need to prove that you've learned that this is inappropriate. You shouldn't do this. That takes longer than a couple of weeks in my mind, because clearly when this was happening, he didn't think there was an issue with it. Now, obviously, he's had the consequences of that. You'd think that, okay, this is the time for learning. This is the time to like learn what you've done, learn from it, and then come back and show us that you've learned from it. And then you can come back, and then you can get a job in football again, maybe at a lesser level with like certain safeguards and things put in place. And another thing as well, like this whole not consulting the female staff at Antwerp just smacks me of like, it's just bizarre. Like, it's very hard, obviously, as a white male to put myself in their shoes. But just thinking, if I was in their shoes, how would you feel? I guess is my thing. Where you see this very high-profile situation at Ajax that's led to a man being sacked, then just being given a job in your football club. It's been interesting, I guess, Scott, hasn't it, to see the kind of fallout. You get the typical kind of fans who will defend the club at anything and just defend it and be like, it's fine. Other clubs have had bad things happen. Obviously, that's true. I mean, wouldn't be surprised that there's a lot more of this going on at other football clubs that just hasn't come to light yet. This is quite a high profile one. But that doesn't make it right. And I think other fans are there'll be quite a few Antwerp fans who will be quite uncomfortable with this in terms of what this is saying about their club and kind of what this suggests to people within the fan base, especially like female fans. Plenty of them in Belgium. Plenty of women do love football. I know this may come as a shock to many people, but like, women like football as well. And like, what does it say to them, I guess, in that situation? But yeah, I'm going to stop now, Scott. I'll let you go, and I'm sure I'll come back with some other ideas. But that's kind of my thoughts on this whole bizarre situation.
I think there's kind of growing anger about this now. That's my feeling about it. I mean, when I first heard the news, a lot of people wasn't sure that there was anything in this, and it was confirmed kind of straight away. He's been given a 4-year contract as well, which in itself is pretty shocking, I think. When you bear in mind that the club have now admitted that they've been talking to him for some time, it seems like their initial contact with Marc Overmars was not very long after he left Ajax. Because if they've been talking to him for a number of weeks, he's only been out of work for just under 6 weeks. So this has all happened very quickly, which adds to the distaste. You know what I mean, and the kind of moral vacuum that's kind of opened up here. Um, I think underlines something rather dark that everybody will already be aware of, and that is football has an issue with misogyny. There's nothing new or shocking to anyone here. I think one of the most distasteful things I've seen over the last few days is men on social media telling women who've been discussing this and talking about how disgusted they are by this. Female football fans have been lectured by male football fans about what misogyny is and what is and isn't inappropriate behaviour. So, for example, I saw somebody yesterday say that yes, the nature of the explicit text and pictures that Marc Overmars sent is inappropriate, but that isn't necessarily misogynistic. Now, if we can't see the connection here, then we've got a much bigger problem. I think there has been a rather unfortunate calculation being made by the hierarchy at Antwerp here that their sporting imperatives outweigh everything else. And that this will probably die down and people will forget about it. Um, maybe not. This is an interesting challenge, if you like, to Antwerp supporters. How ultimately do they feel about this? Are they comfortable overlooking this, which they shouldn't be, or are they prepared to stand up and say, "Look, we're not happy about somebody like this being inside our club"? I mean, for Sven Jaks, the general manager, to come out and say Marc Overmars reflects our values, I think was hugely offensive. I think. I mean, how do you feel as a victim of sexual harassment and sexual assault hearing something like that? What that tells us is this is okay, and that men don't care, and that men is a football's a male only environment. That's actually what it tells everybody, and it says that we don't care about women. That's actually what it says. And also, as well, if you're a female employee at Antwerp at the moment, as you were saying, this has got to raise questions about do you feel less safe now at work? I mean, by default, you have to, because there's now a senior member of the management team who you're going to see and be in contact with on a daily basis, both in an administrative staff sense and the female playing staff, the women's team, who you're going to be in contact with, who is effectively going to be, in a lot of these people's cases, their boss. Now that is just not acceptable, particularly when Sven Jaks also admitted that they didn't speak to female employees at the club at all about this. So there's a lot of things in this that are just unacceptable and deeply offensive. And we've seen in recent months that fan power can change situations. And big things as well. And fans have very much more power than I think they realise here. And I hope Antwerp fans are able to kind of get together and kind of chat about how they actually feel about this. Um, because I suspect he will stay in post. I would like to think they would change their mind, but I think that is unlikely to happen. I think the ambitions of the hierarchy at that club outweigh any other decisions, really. We've seen some other decisions that are kind of morally in line with this as well. It's just really surprising, I think. And you're right, on a personal level, I think Marc Overmars should have gone away for quite some time. Because the thing is, he's shown no real contrition either. There has been no formal apology other than a very much a kind of surface level it's been made clear to me what I did was wrong. I'm going to go away and reflect on that now. And he actually hasn't done that. Of course he hasn't. He hasn't had enough time to do that. So it's really distasteful, this, and really rather offensive. I'll rein myself in as well, because we probably could have talked for the whole episode about that alone, and it'll be interesting. We'll maybe hear Joris's thoughts when he joins us next, because this is a really big story, and I think we'll probably hear some more about this as time goes on as well. It's just it's not nice, and we don't need this, because the one last thing I'll say about this is Antwerp, obviously, with a profile raising all the time because of their ambitions, have a responsibility not only to their own fans but within the wider football community to not make decisions both on or off the park which brings the game into disrepute full stop. And I think this does that massively, and that does everybody a disservice.
Yeah, 100%. I think as well. You just think that a couple of weeks ago we had that like kind of football for all weekend, where we've got all the rainbow flags, we're doing all this inclusivity stuff like that, and then suddenly that's like bang. And also as well, like, obviously as fans of the league and fans like we like to promote the league. We want to tell people about Belgian football because not many people outside of Belgium really care about Belgian football. Apart from obviously you guys listening to us and like us doing this podcast, and now the story people are going to get is Marc Overmars. They're not going to get the story of Union. They're not going to get the story of kind of the United stuff and like kind of the stuff that maybe clubs are doing off the pitch that is being very supportive. I mean, you look at like there's some. I remember like last year, there's like Muscon have like a refugees team, and there's stuff like this that is going on. But the negativity now that's going to be surrounding it is going to be there. And I mean, yeah, I think you're right. I think they are probably banking that actually calculations. He's very good at what he does in terms of football stuff. I think there's no denying that. Like, given the 4 years, he probably will make Antwerp very good in terms of his recruitment and stuff he'll put in place. And they're thinking that's going to be fine. And also, the initial backlash. It depends how like long that's kind of played out for and how long we can sustain that. Because if it's not sustained, we've seen it with something like the Super League. We saw that come out and people were like, right, we need more fan power. We need more, less money being spent in football, blah, blah, blah. And you get to January transfer window and everyone's like, oh, we need to sign the next big striker. We need to do this. You just get sucked straight back into it. The football club, the stuff that's on the pitch becomes more important than actually making these wholesale changes off the pitch. That's the calculations they're making and they probably are going to get away with it. It's basically what Antwerp fans want to do about it, I guess. Again, it's difficult for them to do too much about it to make the change, but they can do something, like you said, like they have a voice. And also the club needs to come out and be like, what safeguards have been put in place for our female employees? Like what behind the scenes are we doing to make sure that the situation at Ajax doesn't get repeated? Like, is he getting training? Is there like kind of awareness training? All that sort of stuff that can be done. Has he agreed to do that? Like, there's so much more they could have done to make this a little bit more kind of like, okay, we've actually thought about the old situation, how we're going to avoid it in the new. But I mean, the press conference didn't really make much kind of headway on that. The PR team, in terms of like the social media, didn't really announce it very much to begin with, and that's when you know that maybe they were like, how are we going to sell this and not get absolutely battered for what we're doing? So we welcome other people's opinions on this. I'm sure everyone knew we were going to talk about it. We're happy to chat with people about it. I think it's something that is going to be debated within the kind of pro league and stuff. Interested to hear what Antwerp fans have to say. If you're for it, if you're against it, kind of we're open to whatever your reasonings are. These are just our personal opinions. We're not sure what Joris thinks yet, but I'm sure we'll hear from him. We'll definitely give him that space to kind of say what he thinks about it. Who knows, maybe in 2 weeks something might be different anyway. But yeah, that's kind of our little spiel, I guess.
I think it's very important, actually, that what happens now is that Antwerp fans communicate to the club how unhappy they are about this, so that message is loud and clear, even if it doesn't change anything. Because I think the hierarchy at this club are, pretty deaf when it comes to things like this. Clearly they are, otherwise they would make a decision like this. And obviously they don't care too much. There's a calculation, as I was saying, that's been made here, and that is regardless of the controversy around it. I think the hierarchy are very much basing this decision on, look, if we'd left this any longer, we wouldn't be able to get somebody of his calibre. If you judge Overmars purely on his success as a director of football at Ajax, he is almost single-handedly credited with the amazing turnaround that club's had over the last sort of 4 or 5 years. He's a key figure in that. So in a footballing sense, he's been very good at what he does, but the fans need to make it clear to the hierarchy how they feel about this. But the hierarchy know fine well that if things change positively in a footballing sense for the club, then the resistance to this appointment is going to disappear very, very quickly if some signings come in that get people excited and hit the ground running. So the way this pans out longer term is really going to come down to, I think, Overmars' role at the club and what happens on the pitch, because fan power alone is unlikely to change this in the short term. But they should be communicating this in the strongest possible terms, because it's their club. Yes, the club hierarchy can decide who they want their senior management team to be and who the senior football staff are on a technical level. But that club, like any other club, is nothing without its fans, and those fans need to stand up for the values that they believe in. And other football fans at other clubs in other countries will very much notice. They will take note if this is kind of ignored by that fan base. So it's unfortunately a challenge that fan base didn't want to have to face, but I think it's important they make clear to their club and to the outside world that this is not acceptable to them, certainly in the short term anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I mean, like you said, we could speak about this all night. I think one other thing I've kind of wanted to say, and it's been kind of thinking about it, is that like it's one of those classic cases of like, if you want to know how these things are kind of normalized and not put, they're kind of swept away, is this sort of situation where someone as talented as him with that dirty record hanging over him is available, and it just takes one club to be like, we can survive that. We can get over that record because we know eventually that's going to work for us. You see it in other sports. You see it in the NFL quite a lot, where players will do something, get sacked, but someone will be like, but he's a really good player. Let's ignore the personal stuff because if we take him, he's going to make our team better. And then they will just take them. And then it becomes normalized because people go, well, what's the consequences of these actions? Like, if I can just get a job 6 weeks later, like, there's literally no consequences for so many people within this. And that's the problem. And that's why you won't deal with the problem of misogyny in football if these things are allowed to continue to happen. And I mean, we can't fix it. We can just raise our voices about it and kind of be angry about it. And I think that's what you have to do. Fans have to be angry about it. But the problem is it can seep into the fan bases. We've seen that in this. Antwerp are not the only ones where you've seen some of that happen. You've seen it every fan base will have misogynistic fans who don't think women belong at football, don't think women belong to work in football, report on football, commentate on football, any of this sort of stuff. They don't belong there apparently, but they do. They have a right to be there. They have fans just as much as everyone else's. And one day, hopefully, we'll see that kind of the non-normalization of misogyny within football. But I think we're a long way off that, unfortunately. And this kind of appointment just shows that. Let's move on to football things now. Let's go down into 1B, Scott, and see what kind of happened there over the weekend.
Well, we score roundup as always. Mouscron lost 2-1 at home. Denza took away the points from Le Caninier there. Beveren dropped points again against Lommel. Good result for Lommel, that actually. Molenbeek won 3-0 at home against Verton, and table toppers Westerlo, who are very nearly there now. They're very nearly a 1A side, and champions won 2-0 at home against Liers. So how does this affect the bigger picture? Well, Westerlo are still top, as they have been for the majority of the season, and depending on results this weekend, they could in the next round of games win the title and get over the line. I think one win now should do it for them. Equally, Molenbeek are pretty much one win away from guaranteeing the playoff spot. They're not quite there yet, but I think with Beveren dropping points again, Molenbeek could have secured that spot even before Beveren and Molenbeek are due to play each other again in early April. So I think by the next episode, everybody, I think we'll have a very good idea of the playoff lineup, and Westerlo being champions, that should be confirmed, and we should be able to have a good chat about their season as well. So things kind of coming to a head there. And Lommel, although not mathematically safe yet, I don't think there's anybody now who thinks Verton are going to catch them at all.
Yeah, I think it is curtains for Vuitton now, isn't it? before the episode, me and Scott actually did have a quick look because obviously during international breaks, you get your lower league football come into the fore. Like you can go out, you can watch your League One, your League Two, your National League in the UK. Same in elsewhere in Belgium. There will be the amateur first division, which is the third tier of Belgian football, will be taking place. And I mean, if you're in Belgium this weekend, definitely try and go watch a couple of these games because the top of that table is absolutely mental at the moment. You've got Dessel Sport on 40 points on top of the league, Dender in second on 39, Patrick Eisden in third on 38, Charleroi with a game in hand on Eisden on 35, and RC Liège also with a game in hand on 35. So who's actually going to come into 1B is completely up for grabs as well between five different teams at the moment as well. So once we kind of have that a little bit confirmed as well, as soon as we do know who's going up and kind of what 1B is going to look like, we'll definitely have a nice little chat about the team that's coming up from that third division. But yeah, if you're in Belgium, definitely go and check out some first amateur division football if you get the chance, because yeah, some of those games are going to be absolutely crazy. Before we go, let's have a quick chat about Europe. I mean, Ghent lose at home to Pauk, and I mean, they really shouldn't have, is my honest opinion. They lost 2-1 at home, and they were all over them. They absolutely battered Pauk in the first half, and then went behind in the 20th minute through Crespo with a tap in at the back post. Deporcha did finally get the breakthrough in the 40th minute, and at that point, you're like, right, they've got so many more goals than them in this game. Like, much the better team, playing good football, creating lots of chances. And in the second half, it just Pauk really started to play a lot better. They kind of slowed the game down, were a little bit more tough to break down as well defensively. Ghent really struggled to make more chances. And in the 77th minute, Douglas Augusto finished it off 2-1 to Pauk on the night, 3-1 on aggregate. End of Belgian kind of participation in Europe this season. Overall, it's kind of been disappointing, hasn't it, Scott? I mean, Ghent were good, Conference League, they were great, and it kind of was the catalyst, we've said it, catalyst for their league form. Club Brugge, very difficult group, gave it their all, were very unlucky. Just that Leipzig home game was the one that kind of killed them there. Genk and Antwerp just not really at the races at all. And then Anderlecht obviously losing to Vitesse in the early rounds to get knocked out. So hopefully next year, but they're starting to really run out of chances to pick up these coefficient points that they desperately need.
Yeah, whenever I think about Belgian sides in Europe, it's too depressing for me to think about for too long, because obviously with Ghent going out to Pauk, and you're right, they probably shouldn't have. Pauk took their chances. Back to the old efficiency, one of our favourite words here. They really did, and they'll be delighted with that. On the balance of play, they probably shouldn't have, but that's why football's interesting. And it doesn't always back up the numbers game. Yeah, I think the most worrying thing, obviously, is we know now that result in itself has confirmed that next season's champions will have to play qualifiers for the Champions League, which is a really grim position for Belgian football to be in. Actually, it's something we were kind of hoping to avoid, and I think even Ghent getting as far as the final, it would have had to have taken that to prevent that from happening. So it was always going to be a big ask, but yeah, massively disappointing. And I just really hope that next season the Belgian sides in Europe can really have a decent season of it, because they need to recover some of those coefficient points. Otherwise, in terms of the bigger picture, we're looking at the beginning of a pretty lean period in European football for Belgian sides. So I hope that next season there's a much improved showing.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think the Europa League like kind of rounds haven't helped. I think they've not been good these last couple of years. Have to say though, on taking kind of a look now back at the Conference League and looking forward, it's been a great addition. If you're a fan of the teams from different leagues around the world, I think most people who aren't fans of teams in the top five have looked at this and thought, "Oh, this is a great league. This is a great competition." Like we've got a Belgian side against a Greek side in the last 16. We've got a Norwegian side going marching through, beating teams left, right, and centre. You've got some other great teams as well doing bits in it. So looking forward to next year, I'd love another strong run from a side in the Conference League, because I think looking at the teams in the top four, and looking at the teams that are getting through the Conference League stages, like the quality's there. The teams have the quality there to put in another good run like Ghent did this season. So fingers crossed we'll get some decent ties in that one next year. And hopefully, yeah, with the qualifying rounds, I mean, we could again rant about how unfair and unjust it is that champions of their countries don't get straight into the Champions League, which isn't quite the Champions League. It basically is a Super League at the moment with a couple of added extras in Ajax and Benfica. But good on them for sticking by it and kind of sticking it to the big boys, that's for sure. But yeah, Conference League's where it's at, folks. Europa League as well. Those are the real competitions you want to watch. Anyway, we should probably wrap this one up here. Obviously, no games next week with the international break. I don't know if other people had this, but Mola Sports kind of went AWOL this weekend. So we're hoping that the games will be back. The 3 games will be back in the next couple of weeks for the last 2 rounds. But we'll let you know on social media when that gets confirmed. We just kind of try and have a chat with them to see what's going on there. But fingers crossed they'll be back. In the meantime, enjoy the international break. Leave us a review at the same time. You have now more time in your hands because you won't be watching as much football. So wherever you do get your podcast of choice, we'd really appreciate it. Scott, as always, thank you for joining me on this episode, the 2-man show.
It's been great to catch up, Ben. Always a pleasure, always a delight. And good luck to the Red Devils against Ireland and Burkina Faso in those upcoming friendlies.
Absolutely. I know that Scott will be appearing on a guest podcast for the Ireland one. Unfortunately, we don't know where we can find to watch the Burkina Faso one because both of us want to see Herve Coffee against Belgium's strongest side, if that is going to happen. Or we could have Dante Van Zier against Herve Coffee, which could be quite fun. Anyway, if you do want to get in touch with us about anything we mentioned in this podcast, ask any questions, anything like that, you can find us at Belgian Podcast on Twitter. Alternatively, you can also email us. It's belgianfootpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks once again for listening, everyone, and we'll see you soon on another episode of the Belgian Football Podcast.